A nationwide manhunt is underway in Belgium as authorities try to track down the remaining suspects connected to Monday's deadly terror attack in Brussels. There have been several developments in the investigation in the wake of the attack. Officials are investigating whether or not American Airlines was the target of Monday's attack. Police uncovered 2 suitcases that were full of explosives, one at the Delta Airlines counter and another at the American Airlines counter. Both were detonated by police. Several Americans are among the missing, including a brother and sister from New York, a couple with ties to Kentucky, and some U.S. government personnel. And the Associated Press reports that ISIS has trained at least 400 fighters to target Europe. The terror group is reportedly deploying them in small terror cells like those that carried out the Brussels and Paris attacks. Their orders are to choose a time and a place that will guarantee maximum devastation. All this is raising concerns about security here in the U.S. and whether a similar attack like the one in Brussels could happen here. Daniel Benjamin is the former ambassador at large of counterterrorism for the State Department. He joins us now from Washington. Good evening to you.
Thanks for having me.
So for so long, it feels like we've heard about Syria and Iraq, and now we're hearing about 400 troops, really, that were trained, as we said, to carry out maximum devastation. What do you make of that Europe is now really becoming a target?
So Europe has been a target for quite a while, and Europe is an attractive target. It's much easier to get into Europe than to get into the United States, for example, because of geography. It's much easier to operate in Europe because of the large Muslim minority communities there, which have been had much higher rates of radicalization for quite some time. So there are people who are there who may never have gone to Syria or Iraq who already are prepared to carry out attacks. Most European Muslims are not radicalized. The vast majority are not, but they do have a higher radicalization rate.
When you think about just the logistics of all of this, why do you think that they looked at U.S. carriers? Why airlines? Or do you think that was a strategic choice?
So the United States, as the #1 power taking the fight to ISIS, has got to be at the very top of the ISIS targeting list. And so it's not surprising that they would try to attack American airlines overseas. They can, of course, get on the planes. It would be very, very difficult for them. We should never say can't. Very difficult for them to get on those planes. So that's probably why they went to those gates to do what they could against American targets, if that's in fact what happened.
You know, Defense Secretary Ash Carter said the Brussels attack highlights to Europe that it needs to join the U.S. in stepping up its fight against ISIS. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. We would like to see more European activity, both in the actual area of combat in Syria and Iraq. But what it also points out, I think, is that Europeans really need to step up their funding, their staffing, and their overall work on homeland security, on border security, on intelligence. They need to coordinate better. They need to break down a lot of the stovepipes that we did after 9/11 in our country, but which they've never really been galvanized to do. And they are really challenged to meet the threat right now.
Is it your sense that some of the laws will need to be changed? I think in watching a lot of this coverage, you've probably also noticed there's been a lot of criticism about the gloves that are on international investigators. Do you think there should be laws that allow them to really go after the criminals that they might be looking for?
You know, there have actually been quite a lot of legal reforms in many different countries in Europe since 9/11, and I'm not really in a position to second guess them, but I do know from experience that they don't always use all the authorities they have, and they are sometimes reluctant to press the envelope on what it is they need to do. So, for example, we get information from Europe on aviation passengers that the Europeans don't even exchange among themselves when a flight is going, within Europe. We have been much more aggressive in getting them to share information with us than they do among themselves, and that, I think, indicates just how serious the agenda is for the Europeans.
Well, even with the success that we've had here in the United States, yesterday we heard some of the lawmakers here say there have been 20 plots that have been foiled just here in New York City. Do you feel like the United States is doing enough to minimize the threat of a terror attack?
You know, I think we're extremely forward-leaning. We've been working flat out since 9/11. As we have found on numerous occasions, you have to continue to innovate. The terrorist groups are learning organizations, and they will try to find whatever glitch we have, whatever vulnerability we have. But I think we're working very hard. We can never be complacent, and we can expect that at some point they're going to find a vulnerability. But by and large, I think we have quite a good record. Remember, in Europe, since 9/11, over 500 people have been killed by jihadist terrorists. In the United States, the number is more like 45.
How does the United States go about the daunting task of tracking people who might go abroad, who might go someplace like Syria and get radicalized and then come back into the United States?
Well, we have an enormous intelligence apparatus that is dedicated to doing exactly that. And another part of it is that we rely heavily on communities, on Muslim communities around the United States that will tell us when they fear someone is being radicalized or is at risk of taking up violence. And it's very important that we maintain those very close ties. And that's why people who are in the counterterrorism business have been so alarmed by some of the campaign rhetoric that has been demonizing Muslims, because anything that weakens the trust of Muslim communities will really undermine our counterterrorism efficacy.
All right, Ambassador Daniel Benjamin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.